Good evening, everyone. My name is Deb McNally. I'm the housing manager here at the City of Takoma Park. I have a great panel with me today for this Landlord Roundtable. So I'll start with introducing Jean, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, my name is Jean Kerr. I'm the Senior Housing Specialist in the Housing Division.
And Jessica?
Hello, I'm Jessica Troop. I'm the Housing Program Specialist, and I'll be talking about the rental licensing.
And Scott?
Hi, good afternoon. Well, I guess it's really good evening at this point. So, yes, I'm Scott Falvey. I'm a Senior Energy Program Manager with Maryland's DHCD, and I manage primarily energy efficiency programs for multifamily properties.
Thank you, Scott. So we're very excited to have you all here tonight. We've got a lot to cover, so I'll try to keep my pieces brief so we can get on to Jean, Scott, and Jessica's updates. But what I'll say is we'll start with some kind of city updates or need to know items. We'll then go over to Scott and he'll talk about some of the resources at the state level. We do have a new rental licensing platform that we're going to be rolling out this coming December for the renewals. And Jessica will kind of go over the platform and answer some of kind of the initial questions. That will then go over the fair return process, and Jean will walk us through that. And then we're going to try to open up the floor for 30 to 45 minutes for your guys' questions, comments, thoughts on how the city is doing. And then we'll plan to wrap up. So with that, I'll dive right in. There's a few things to be aware of. There was a lot of work at the state level this past year on housing. And so there's been a few changes. So starting with a statewide tenant opportunity to purchase law. So if you're a landlord with a building of 3 or fewer units, it's no longer being handled by the city. Instead, it is being handled at the state level. So there's a new portal that the state has for handling those, including any relevant documents. And so you can use that. We will be passing out these slides at the after this meeting, probably tomorrow sometime, so that you'll be able to kind of save that URL for you to use later. That said, if you do have 4 or more units, you're still required to comply with the city and county requirements around our tenant opportunity to purchase law. There's also been a change in security deposit law. Starting October 1st, if there's a new lease being created, so you're signing an entirely new lease, the maximum security deposit is 1 month's rent. There are a couple exceptions that are listed below, but we urge you to consult with a lawyer before charging an additional amount. I also want to quickly plug our multifamily building improvement grant. We had awards handed out in 2024, and we'll be opening it up for another round in 2025. We're targeting late January. We'll be giving preference to buildings not currently receiving funds, but as always, we encourage everyone to apply and see if they are funded. And we'll be communicating more updates as we get closer to the new year. I also then briefly wanted to plug a few different resources and funding sources. The county has an apartment assistance program, and this is technical and some limited financial assistance for small scale landlords, so those that own fewer than 50 units. And you can check out their website there. They have a number of different programs and staff there to help you. The Montgomery County Green Bank is a funding source for a lot of different energy and climate resilient projects. And then we have 2 state departments, one of which you'll hear from tonight, which is the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, but also the Maryland Department of Energy that have a variety of different grants and loan services that are available to landlords. And so with that, I will turn it over to Scott Falvey to talk about some of the state funding programs that are available. So Scott.
Great, thank you, Devin. Yeah, so as I said earlier, I manage our multifamily energy efficiency programs. And I guess you can go to the next slide, Devin. The two primary programs that we have are the Empower program, which some of you, or hopefully maybe many of you, are familiar with. DHCD's had the Empower program for 13 or so years at this point, maybe 14 years. We've been managing the low income portion of the Empower program. And then the greenhouse gas reduction program. This is actually a fairly new program, and this one is brought to us through legislation with the primary purpose of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next one. So for the MEHA program, the purpose is to reduce electric and gas use in multifamily affordable properties. And that's done through the installation of energy efficient improvements, heating systems, hot water heaters, air sealing insulation, lighting, stuff like that. The way that we distribute funds is through grants and loans, and we don't choose which method the funds are issued in. We actually leave that up to the applicant, to the developer. The idea is to make the funds available. Sometimes it's difficult for properties to take on grants, and it's better for their financial situation to take on a loan or vice versa. And so we offer it either way, and however works best for the property owner. And when we issue grants and loans, we don't issue the funds up front. You get an award in the beginning, and then funds are done on a reimbursement basis, kind of on a percentage complete. Really, it's as work is done, a requisition is submitted, and then funds are distributed. And we'll probably go a little bit more detail on that a little bit later in the slide. And eligibility for the Empower program: 20% of the units must house households at or below 80% AMI, and the program requires that you do that for a minimum of 5 years. Next one. And the MEHA GHGRP, which is Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program, is to reduce direct greenhouse gas emissions in affordable multifamily properties through electrification of equipment, energy efficiency, conservation improvements, and alternative energy generating systems. But really what we're focusing on is reduction of on-site greenhouse gas emissions. We have another program with the Empower program that helps with energy efficiency and conservation. And we're hoping pretty soon, and we think we'll see this a little bit later in the slide, that we may also be getting Solar for All funds, which will allow us to help some multifamily properties put solar on their buildings or somewhere nearby. These funds right now are only issued as grants, and they're issued as grants because that's the way legislation says they're issued. It's possible in the next legislative session, we may be able to get that changed to loans, but I don't know if that'll happen. And so right now, the only way that we get those out there are through grants. And this one is also by reimbursement. The structure's pretty much the same. And we actually try to do that with the different funding sources that we get to try to make it much easier for applicants to be able to come into the program. We determine what funding sources the project may be eligible for, and then we can, offer those to the developer. You don't have to do a separate application for each funding source. And then eligibility under the GHGRP is 51% of the units have to be housing tenants, affordable tenants at or below 80% AMI. And for this one, the property, must do that for a minimum of 15 years. And next one. So just kind of a really high level, example of some of the improvements that we can pay for. There's ventilation systems. We can do appliances and, heating and cooling. And I was saying a little bit earlier, lighting or, hot water, pretty much anything that uses energy or puts off, carbon emissions, those are opportunities that we can help assist with. Next slide. So here's the funding process, kind of a high level overview. So we have two ways of receiving applications. One, a lot of properties go through the department's rental lending program, low-income housing tax credits, 4%, 9%. It could be MHT funds. There could be a number of different funding sources that you're going through on the rental lending side. But any property that's going through on that side, we call a pipeline project, and we review those applications to see how we can help incentivize a developer to do more. If a lot of times when you're coming in under the pipeline, you need to do efficiency requirements anyway. We have our funds to try to incentivize to push you out a little bit further and try to do a little bit more for efficiency. We need to do an energy audit, and then a funding request is submitted. The energy audit helps to drive the funding request. It identifies the measures that are recommended to be installed, and then we determine funding from there. The nice thing with the Empower program, one of the changes that we made this cycle, which we're near the end of the first year of the 3-year cycle. We actually have a measure list that identifies specific measures and the amount of funding you could receive for those measures to give you a good idea up front what you might be able to get for your project so that you can better budget for that. So once we receive the funding request, we review that, and we determine the funding, as agreed upon with the project owner. There may be some negotiation back and forth as to, what DHCD would suggest doing. Sometimes something might be required, and there may be things that either the owner does or doesn't want to do. And again, we can negotiate, what the final scope is that we end up funding. Once the funding's been determined, it goes through our loaning. Once the funding's been determined, we then draft up our loan and grant agreements. And again, there's a little bit of back and forth on those sometimes. For one reason or another, there might be some language in there that doesn't quite fit for our property. But generally, we have a template that we end up sticking with. And then if the property is, we'll say, a greenhouse gas reduction program property, there'll be affordability restrictions placed on that. We do that through the use of a regulatory agreement. For the Empower program, for the 5-year term, it's usually just through the grant process. We don't file a regulatory agreement on that property. And so once those things are completed, we move into the construction phase, and you as the developer can utilize your own contractors, do the work, and once you've got some work complete, then you submit a requisition, to our team, and we'll review the requisition, and then we will go out and do an inspection on the work that was requisitioned for. We make sure that the work that you requisitioned is actually in place and installed. We don't fund measures that have been purchased and stored off-site, or even purchased and stored on-site. We want them to be installed so that we know that that they're there and that they will be functioning the way that they're intended to. And once we've done that inspection and verified that, we then process the requisition for payment, and then the payment is sent out to the developer. Once we get to the end of construction, the project's complete, and at that point, then the project enters the affordability period. And then again, depending on the agreement, that affordability period is based on the terms of that agreement, and it will get it'll get monitored for compliance, through our asset management team. Next one. So future programs, Inflation Reduction Act. That's probably a funding source that a lot of you have heard about over the years. This is, federal funding, and there's two funding sources. There's one that's for doing energy efficiency of electric homes, and there's one for doing electrification, switching from fossil fuels to electric equipment. This application is being led by MEA. However, we are working with MEA on the application for both of these programs, and then the funding for the low income portion will be coming to, or really coming to and through DHCD. So for the efficiency program, properties must model a minimum of 20% energy savings in order to be eligible for these funds. And if they model out to being or getting a 20 to 34% energy reduction, then there's a minimum. I'm sorry. Right now, the maximum level is $4,000 per unit. However, with our application, we are seeking to have that increased. And, we don't know what that will be, but we are seeking to have that increased because one of the advantages of these Inflation Reduction Act funds are that the Empower funds can't be used throughout the whole state. There's smaller areas, municipal utilities that don't participate in Empower. And so we don't have programs that actually, our Empower program doesn't get into those municipal territories, and it doesn't get in to the chop tank territory. So these funds would help to get into those properties and give them more money that they wouldn't have, through other funding sources. And so if you achieve a 35% or better savings, right now the maximum is $8,000 per unit. And again, we're looking to have that increased, and we won't know about that until the application is reviewed. And then for the electrification program, right now the maximum is set at $14,000 per unit, and I believe we haven't asked to modify that. So that'll probably end up being what the maximum is that's allowed for those. And again, the electrification program is to remove fossil fuel systems and replace them with electric systems. And then Solar for All program is, again, that's another federal funding source. And this will help us put, solar on some of these multifamily properties that maybe have been looking to do solar and haven't had resources. We as a program haven't had resources to do multifamily solar as well. So we're looking forward to these funds, and we're hoping that we'll actually get these funds. And I will just back up for 1 second. You don't need to go back in the slides, Devin, but the GHGRP program is really intended for properties that fall underneath Maryland's BEPS standards. So if you're a covered property, and really from a high level, what that means is, if your building is 35,000 gross square feet or more, excluding any parking garage space, your property will fall under the BEPS. And there are little nuances in there too. An example would be if you've got 3 buildings on site and they're all connected to the same gas meter, you would take the square footage of all 3 of those buildings, you would add them up. And again, this is gross square footage. It's not square footage on the ground. It's total gross square footage of living space. You'd add that up, and if it's over 35,000 square feet, you then would also fall under BEPS. Greenhouse gas reduction program is intended to help properties start kind of getting used to the BEPS standard, but also give them funds to be able to work towards achieving the BEPS standards. And I think that's it. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I do have a program manager that actually manages the programs on a day-to-day basis, and I may have a lot of answers for you, but he will have more detailed answers for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We have a couple of quick questions here. So Terry, I think if you would like to ask your question.
Thank you, Devin. Yes, I was wondering, this presentation says that it talked about a lot of grants and loans, but said they are all multifamily properties. Are there any available for single-family rental homes that house low-income tenants?
Yeah. So we also have an Empower program for single-family properties, and these IRA funds. There will also be funds available for single-family properties as well. For all of these programs, your tenant would actually have to do an application, and they would do the application either through OHEP to get energy assistance, or they can do it directly, with DHCD.
Okay. Lois, I think you are able to talk now. Lois should be able to unmute.
Am I unmuted now?
Yep.
Okay. I have only one apartment, and it's under rent control. So does that automatically mean that it's affordable?
So one apartment that you own.
Yeah, it's a basement apartment in the house that I own.
So if it's under rent control, then I think technically, yes, that would qualify. In your situation, you would probably want actually, I'm not clear on the single family portions. This would fall under our single family program. I can tell you that generally the requirement is, at least in a 2-unit like this, 50% of the property would have to be eligible. And if the person, your tenant, is rent control, it's likely that they would be eligible. But you would actually have to have your tenant apply, and you go through the application process. I guess one question I have would be, the utility bill. Is the utility bill in your tenant's name, or is that in your name? Because that might actually be a driver as to what
It's mixed. Some of the things we pay for, and some of the things the tenant pays for.
Okay.
So it just seems strange that the tenant would ordinarily, the gas stove needs to be replaced. I don't want to tie up with specifics, but ordinarily the landlord would replace the stove, not the tenant. But anyway, that you answered part of my question.
Yeah, my greater recommendation would be, you could actually visit, Maryland DHCD's website, and go to the Empower website, our Empower program website, and then, kind of follow the links for the single family programs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions? And like I said, we'll have there's an open chat as well that you can type in your questions, and we'll try to collect those at the end as well. All right. Thank you very much, Scott.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So moving along, next up is Jessica, and she'll be walking us through the new rental licensing platform that will be rolling out in the next coming weeks.
All right, thank you, Devin. As Devin said, we are rolling out a new rental licensing platform, launching early in December, so we're coming up on it soon. And I think we can go to the next slide for the introduction. Right. Part of why we are launching this new platform is that we hope it'll simplify the renewal process, both for you all and for us. One of the big perks of it is that you will be able to view your licenses, your applications, and any documents that you submit for your license at any point. So anything that we have, you'll be able to see. Like we said, we're launching this for December 2024. So if your license is up for renewal, you're going to be getting more information from us in the coming weeks. You should have already gotten some already. And it'll walk you through creating your account, and we'll also be sending out a guide on completing your renewal. And if anyone in this call, their license is not up for renewal yet, you'll get more information in February. So we want to give just a quick overview so you can see what the system looks like a bit. We're not going to walk through every single step of this, but like I said, we'll give you a pretty step-by-step guide to go through this in the future when you actually do start your renewals. So keep an eye out for that. The first thing you'll do is log into your account. Your account sign-in will be through your email address that we have on file. There's also a button there, as you can see, to reset your password. If you ever forget it, it'll go back to that email. So it's pretty straightforward there. And then this is what the main screen looks like once you sign in. So you can see there, I know it might be a little small on your screen. There is a license there for your rental property. The columns there tell you the status of your license, the status of your inspection, the expiration date of your license, when you submitted it, and then what kind of property you have. You'll see there this license is expired or about to expire December 1st. And there is a red button there that says renew license. So you'll just click that to open up the application to renew your license. And then this is what the form to renew looks like. So it has all of your standard information. It'll already be populated with what we have from your previous application. So for a lot of these sections, you'll just be reviewing what we have on file, making sure that everything's correct, and then submitting it. So you can see the first piece of this is the ownership information. So again, this is where you'll make sure we've got your right address on file. If you changed a phone number, updated an email address, you'll be able to correct all of that on here. So you make sure that we can contact you. At the very bottom there, oh, wait, can you go back? Almost there. There is a button to say if it is managed by you as the owner or if you have an agent. So then we jump to the next slide. And if you do have an agent, you'll fill out this section with all the information for the agent that manages your property. If you don't have an agent, you get to skip this completely. So you'd update that if the agent has changed, if there's different contact information. All of it. Okay, we can go to the next one. And this section is where you will be uploading your landlord and lead certificates. You can see that you'll be able to choose the file for it. It does have to be a PDF. And then you will type in the landlord certificate expiration date and the lead certificate type. In this case, again, we already have your information, so you'll see the expiration date already there. If it's expired, you'll upload your new one. And as far as the lead certificates go, in the future, when you have a change in tenant, as you can see, you will be uploading your new lead certificate if it's that full risk reduction that most people have. This time around, since it's our first time in this system, it'll be a little bit different. We'll be reaching out to you if there's anything that seems like it needs to get updated for that. And then at the very end of the form, you'll see you have a button to submit it. Before you submit it, you're going to double check that all the information is correct, that you uploaded anything you needed to upload, and that all the required fields with that red asterisk are filled out. Because once you hit submit, you won't be able to edit it, and it will go straight to us to get reviewed. And then you can see there that now you have the second renewal application showing up. There's the original one, and then that new one that says pending, which means it has been sent to us to review. We will either approve it, it'll move on to the next step, or we might send it back to you to make a correction with a note of what we think needs to get changed. And then after your application has been approved, you'll see that license status, which is to pending payment. One of the nice things here is that you can see where that renew license button was. Now there is a button to pay, so you can pay right here in the new system. You will still be able to mail in a check or pay in person at the finance office, but for a lot of folks, this will be a little bit easier. And once you click that button, this is the payment screen that will pop up. This year's rental licensing fee is going to be $132 per unit. So you can see there is a small charge added to it if you're paying online. And then you'll just put in your credit card information and the payment will go to us. And now you can see a lot of arrows here, but your licensing status has now switched to ready for inspection and pending inspection. That's only going to happen if you still need your inspection done for this year. So a lot of you, that won't be the case. And if your inspection has been done, you'll see in that second license screenshot, it says ready to be issued and inspection passed. So all that means is that we are going to give it one final look through, make sure everything looks good before we go ahead and issue your license. And now you can see similar to the last one, except the license status has changed. Now it says license issued. And if you click that view details button, it's going to pull up your application that you filled out. And you'll see that now there is a field that says license expiration date and also a button to show your license. And this should look familiar. The license hasn't changed too much, but you are now able to go back in through your account and pull it up anytime that you want. You can also download it as a PDF, print it out, but you'll always have access to it online. And so just a quick little review for when you guys are looking at these slides later. You'll log in, submit your application, either revise it if it's sent back and resubmit, or it'll be approved, pay the fee, have your inspection done, and then we will issue the license and you'll be able to view it in the system. So we wanted to go through a couple questions that we anticipate or we have gotten already about this transition. And the first few of these are on the landlord and lead certificates. So if you're not sure if that landlord or lead certificate needs to be updated, go ahead and reach out to me now. That way, if it does, you can knock it out before the renewals actually start so you don't get behind. And then if they are current, you won't need to upload those for the renewal. If I have them on file, I'll upload them for you. And if I don't, I will ask you to send me a copy. And some other questions that we've either had or are anticipating. What can you go ahead and submit your application early and pay the license fee now? I know some people like to get ahead on it before December. This time we're asking that you do not do so. We want all the renewals are going to need to be completed through the new platform. So hold off until you hear from me in the beginning of December. We mentioned there will be an email that's sent out that is going to give you the information that you need to set up your account using the email address that we have on file. So if you don't get the email and you have an agent that renews your license, they will have an account to complete the renewal. So you want to reach out to them, make sure that they got the email and set up the account. And if they haven't, have them reach out to me so we can make sure that we get everything squared away. And if you don't have an agent and you don't see that email come through, check your spam folder just in case. Make sure you save the email from the system because it goes out. A lot of these do automatically. If it's not in your spam, reach out to me again. Make sure that we've got the right email for you, and then we'll go ahead and get your account set up. And I already mentioned it, but just to reiterate, you will not need to pay the license fee online. If you'd rather mail a check, If you'd rather come in person, you can still do that, and we'll track it through that system. And as always, if you have any questions, whether that's setting up your account, getting into the application, getting it submitted, please reach out to us, reach out to me. We are here to help you through this whole process. I know it's, going to be a learning curve for this transition, but I think that once we've gone through this first round, it's going to be a lot easier.
All right, thank you, Jessica. And just as a quick reminder, we will be posting this, but if you need to reach out to any of our staff, we have our emails kind of on the website, and also they will be at the end of this presentation as well, and I'll make sure to leave that up during the question and comment period as well. So we'll now move on to Jean Kerr, and she'll be walking us through the fair return petition process. So Jean?
Good night, all. Under the rent stabilization law, multifamily rentals with 2 or more units, as well as an individual rental condo unit, can apply for a fair return petition. What is a fair return rent increase? It's an opportunity to increase the rent above the rent stabilization allowance, which enables the landlord to maintain his or her past net operating income adjusted for inflation into the current year. From the base year through 2007, the inflation adjustment is equal to 70% of the percentage increase in the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, and 100% of the percentage increase in the CPI. Also, a landlord under rent stabilization can file a petition when his or her net operating income, which is the profit, has not increased by the amount amortized under the fair return standard. Net operating income is defined as the gross income minus the operating expenses. So to do the fair return calculation, the rent analyst, it's a base year, a current year, and 2 prior years that are used to compare the operating expenses. The base year is a selected year, which is used to determine what net operating income would be fair in the current year. The base year net operating income is adjusted by inflation fact in order to determine what net operating income would be fair in the current year. The current year is either the calendar year, which is from January to December, or the fiscal year July 1st to June 30th, immediately preceding the date of the application is when the application is filed. Reasonable expenditures for operating and maintenance of the rental facilities are management fees, self-labor, utilities, property taxes, insurance, and routine repairs. Operating and maintenance expenses that are excluded are mortgage payments, fines, attorney fees, etc. You can also add your capital improvement, which is an addition or the partial replacement of the property add to the value of the rental facility to the petition. Next. So, in the way how the process works, you would submit an application with documentation and proof of payment of operating and maintenance expenses. Once the application and documentation is submitted, it's reviewed for completeness, documented, and forwarded to the rent analyst for review. Notice of the filing along with a copy of the fair return petition application is also sent to the tenants in the rental facility, which the city does that. The rent analyst will then issue a draft decision within 90 days of receipt of the application. The landlord, it will then send to the landlord for review, and if they have any comments, they would submit their comments. It will go back to the rent analyst who will review your comments, issue a final decision, and send it to the decision is submitted to the landlord. Now it would be the landlord's responsibility to deliver all the decision to all the tenants. The landlord and the tenant also has a right to challenge the decision within 30 days of receiving the final decision. So if you would like to file a fair return petition, you can contact Jean Kerr again for an application. Any questions?
Thanks, Jean. We have one quick question here, which is for fair return calculations, how would that work in a 3-unit building in which one of the units is owner occupied?
We have never had that. So, because the person is not paying rent. So I'm not sure if they use the two other units that are rented as the rental income.
I think,
Yeah, but we've never had that before.
I think we would want to work with you, so please reach out to us. I think that we would figure out a way to kind of capture kind of what are the rental pieces for it, especially kind of any sort of like, let's say you're putting on a new roof or something like that.
Right.
I think Iqbal raised their hand to ask a question, so I'm gonna open that up. Iqbal, you should be able to talk.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Hi, Jean. How are you?
There you go. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, I mean, you were talking about the fair return petition, and it's been such an unfair process. I mean, I filed that, and you guys approved me for $22. I mean, after all the work that I've been through, and it's unprecedented that you have 6 units in my situation that renting for less than $1,200. This is way below market market price, and it's just it's impossible to operate the property in a fair condition with such a low rents. And I've been talking to you about this so many times, and it's just I've been thinking, and I talked to Devin about that, and instead of doing this greenhouse improvement, why not helping tenants that need the help, and let landlords raise the rents a little bit higher so they can actually improve the property. The rents are so low that it's just impossible. I've been owning this property for the past 4 years, and I've been putting my own money every year just to support the property. Okay, just to renew the license for the city, I had to get the lead inspection. Okay, just the lead inspection was over almost $3,000. And those things, you don't even plan on that. I had to have the boiler inspected for the state. There was another about $2,000 I had to spend. My insurance, I just got the insurance bill. It went up $1,000. I mean, this is just impossible to keep up with that. And you guys are talking about fair return. There's nothing fair in this fair return application. It's so difficult to run a business like that.
I
just want to bring it. I want to bring it up, and I talked to Kara about that, the representative, and she agreed with me. And I don't know if she's still in her position, and she said the city is just refusing to let landlords to bring the apartment to market level. I mean, with increases of 3% a year, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't help. It's hurting the landlord. It's hurting the tenant. It's hurting the city by not allowing him to raise property taxes. So it's all it's you know what they said, comes around goes around. If you guys gonna help the tenant, it's gonna help the city. And I've been trying to talk to people about it, and nobody is willing to listen.
I want to thank you for your comment, Egal, and I do want to say that we are planning to have some time at the end to kind of capture these comments, because we do want to make sure that we've been doing outreach to both tenants and members of the community around housing, but we also want to hear from landlords about this as we kind of bring these forward and bring these concerns to the attention of council members such as Councilmember Hansack.
This is the first time we are having a round table with landlord. I've been owning the property since 2020, and I don't think nobody wanted to listen to landlords.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we're hosting it today, and we're hoping to have more roundtables and discussions with all housing stakeholders.
I mean, with all the respect, it's so much work to submit the petition, and the city held my application for more than a year, and with no answer, with the reason that there was no rent analysis. And after this whole work and after this whole time, I was approved for $22 increase. So it's so it's difficult.
Yeah.
Well, you have the right to file again.
I you know what, Jean, it was so much work that I don't want to go through this again. To be honest, I mean, you guys held me for over a year. I put all this paperwork, I collected all the receipts, and it was just difficult. It was just difficult. And I hope whoever on this discussion tonight can hear me and do something about that. Because I can understand that you want to help tenants to keep the rent low, but there are struggling landlords to keep up with the property and the expenses. And you know what? And I think that you guys talking about removing 3 units or less from the city, I think it should be 10 units or less. Because I think most of the small landlord is the one that actually carry all this load. Sorry.
Yeah, no problems, Egal. That's why we're hosting it, is to hear questions, comments, and feedback. So I want to thank you for your thoughts and your comments. I do want to get to others really quick. So I think Autumn raised their hand to talk. So Autumn, you should be able to unmute and ask any questions.
Hi, this is actually Garrett Presick standing in for Autumn. I have to follow up on that previous comment. My partner Autumn owns this rent stabilized 3-unit building off of Flower Avenue, and it's the same thing, the rent stabilization. Yet our property taxes first year of ownership went up $5,000. So any minimal rent increase, like the previous commenter was saying, of $22 is ridiculous in comparison to the tax increases. I think for those of us who have rent stabilized property, it would be really, really beneficial for some kind of tax, real estate tax abatement to help us be able to run a business here. I mean, we're losing money. We're going backwards because of the tax increases and the inability to get a fair rent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is something I believe that another person has picked up on. They were talking about significant increases to their property taxes as well, and something that we understand. So I want to thank you for that comment. Christine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to comment on actually, I'm just kind of backing up what the other two people have said. You know, when I bought my house about 8 years ago, and it was, you know, I bought it with the understanding that, I mean, it's a very high mortgage and I could only afford it because of my rental units. And my taxes have increased hugely. Like everything's gone up. The heating's gone up. The, you know, electricity costs have gone up. And I have no control over what my renters do in terms of their heat. But I'm the one paying, and it costs, you know, I can't raise what, you know, because there's a formula that I inherited. I have no power to increase that. And so I'm kind of trapped in this sort of 8, 9 years ago formula that was handed over to me that was you know, probably already several years old. And so it's just eating me alive. And then I had to put, you know, $15,000 worth of, like, I don't know, some kind of, you know, thing to keep my house, my basement apartment from flooding, you know, and I'm only getting $900 for this apartment because of rent control. And I mean, I don't think I'd get that much more for it, but at least I could try. And you know, it's going to take me 2 years of that apartment to pay that $15,000 off, right? So, you know, now that apartment isn't even really helping me with this very expensive mortgage, because now I'm busy paying back all this money to fix the, you know, the perimeter of the apartment. And so basically I know that we've been waiting for this call for a long time. It's really frustrating that you're saying, oh, well, we're talking to the renters, or we're talking to these people. We're the ones you need to include in this. Like, you're killing us here. And I just want to say that, you know, this is the reason you know, this is what we've been waiting for, is to have this conversation. And you need to have a meeting where we can really talk to you about this and show you the problems that we're facing. And, you know, I share the boiler, I share the heating, the water, all of that with my renters. I have 2 rental units in my house, and I'm rent controlled. And I just feel like it's just somebody who lives this is just my house. And, you know, because of that, I am rent controlled. And I feel like if it's just a house with, you know, 2 rental units, why am I sort of boxed into this same rental thing that maybe a place that has like 100 units? It's really what you're going to do is you're going to drive out people like me who are very middle class. I'm not going to be able to afford a 100-year-old house with these rental properties because I can't keep up. It's just the weight of it, the old pipes, you know, it just goes on and on. And for the fact that he had to pay, only got $20, it's got to be a transparent process where we can see ahead of time, if we put X amount of dollars into our property, we're going to be lifted this much. Not we do all of this work, we put all this money into it, thinking we're going to, you know, be able to fill out this thing, and instead, you know, you wait a year to find out you only are allowed to lift at $20. Like, that's not fair to the landlords. I mean, just telling you, the pressure is really heavy on the landlords. And I just really wish the city would get to the point where you really can work with us so that we're all helping each other. So we're helping people have lower rent and whatever. But the way you're doing it is going to chase people like me out. I'm just not going to, the weight of this house is going to crush me, and I'm going to have to sell it. And so I've got 2 kids I want to get through school. I thought this was an investment, but it's really just sucking away all of my cash. And I'm dipping into my 401k to survive. And so sorry that we're all having this conversation when you want to move on with your meeting, but this is what we're here for. So I'll stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. So what I would want to say there is that that's part of actually why we wanted to bring this roundtable together. So part of it was to do resources, but one of the things that we also wanted to do was hear directly from landlords. So I would say that your comment is absolutely the right time. That's part of the whole point. We want to make it
Am I still
informative,
unmuted?
but
Am I still unmuted?
yes.
I just want to say Jean's been amazing. I really appreciate her work. She's super quick to get back to us. I just want to point that out, that I really do appreciate the staff in Takoma. And I just want to say thank you. Shout out to her awesome work. Thanks, Jean. I'll stop.
Thank you, Christine.
Yes, and I want to say Jean is just wonderful and has a wealth of knowledge, and we really try, as staff, we try to be responsive to everyone. What I'll say is that yes, we've taken some time to kind of pull together. I know that I was hired in the end of 2022. We spent a lot of time in 2023 kind of pulling everything together, and we're starting to now kind of bring people together as we start these conversations. This is not going to be the last conversation that we have, especially on these sorts of critical topics, because I think there is a recognition that there is a very fine balancing act, and how do we find that best balance? And I know that my staff hears from a lot of people who have a lot of different thoughts on the subject of rent stabilization. And we're trying to collect as much information, because at the end of the day, it is a policy decision that is decided on by City Council, and our job is to try to provide the most complete information to them about what's going on and what some of the issues are that we're seeing in the community. And so that's really a goal for one of these for these sessions. I know that there were a few other hands raised, but I don't see anyone with their hand currently raised. So if you would like to speak or have a question or comment, please raise your hand and I'll open it up. It looks like Lois raised their hand. Karen? Karen, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Yes, I can. I just wanted to piggyback. I'm really glad to hear that you're going to have more of these, because I started out in, it's just, I know that you're, not just you, because many cities are doing it. They start out with rent control in an effort to help, different communities that need that. But the people who, like somebody said, just regular middle class or lower middle class, but you finally got a point to where you could buy something, and where's the help for you then? So it's like you get nurtured along, and then all of a sudden, well, now you're, I think it's almost, the way I've felt many times is that it's assumed that because I'm called a landlord, even though I have one rental unit. So I don't really like that title, but that's what I'm labeled. Because I'm considered a landlord, I'm also considered rich. And so I have a lot of things that I am required to do, like people have already mentioned, to keep the property up, which of course I want to keep my property up, but it's just one-sided. It's very one-sided, and I'm relieved to hear so much of that, because I sometimes feel alone. I've never attended one of these roundtables. I guess it's the first one you've had. So it's just, I thought it was just me, and I thought maybe all the other landlords are rich, but I'm not. And you try to help people out by letting them rent your unit, but eventually you have to take it off the market because you can't afford to keep it on, So that's all. I just wanted to, I hope that we can do a shorter timeline. I'm really sorry for the man who spoke and said it took over a year for him to get a sort of verdict, a decision, and then the decision was just a disappointment, like really insulting to me, to, if and I've had to spend that kind of money, and to find out that I can get an extra $22 a month, that, it's very one-sided right now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And what I will say is we've hired essentially gotten a contract with the rents analyst, so that hopefully we can move those applications a lot quicker in the future. And I think it's a fair point. I think that Agal raised, and I think it was also echoed by Christine, to maybe provide more transparency up front, what a likely outcome would be before you undertake the full process. So. Right. Any other? It looks like Lois has their hand up. Lois, you should be able to talk now.
Unmute. What do you do with that rent report that I submit every year?
Yeah, great question. So the rent report is reviewed by our team. So Jean is the one who reviews those reports. They are kept on file, and that is, if there are any kind of issues with the report, let's say the rent is a little too high, or they see something, Jean will reach out. But they are just stored.
That's all? You don't actually do anything? Like, I keep wondering, why do you need to know every year, like who's paying the water bill or who's paying the heat or the electricity? What do you need to know that for? And do you get the same information from the non-rent controlled apartment owners?
So we review the reports kind of year to year to see if there are any changes, because there are laws around rent stabilization, including, for example, utility transfers.
Yeah.
And we're happy to answer kind of the details if you would like to dive into them. But we do review the reports, and take a look at them. So it isn't just you submit a
Yeah,
piece
no,
of
I
paper.
just was wondering, why are you collecting that information? And do the non-rent control people have to submit that? Do they have to submit that form also?
So they don't submit that form. They have to provide either they are a single family home, which is not covered. There are certain like building types.
Yeah.
Or if they are an exempt building, they submit documentation that they are exempt. So for example, if you are an affordable housing complex, you have to submit compliance documents, and we just ask
Yeah.
for copies of those.
But like, why do you need to know who pays my tenant's electric bill and you don't need to know? I'm just wondering why.
That's
Mhm.
part of the law.
Just why do you need to know this, and why do you only need to know it from me and not from the apartment across the street, which has only one unit? Anyway, I'm just curious about why.
Well, Lois, let me step back.
Okay.
Because the rent reports are basically for properties that are under rent stabilization.
Yeah.
So in the law, we have to collect rent reports for compliance. And so that's why we need to know who pays the electric. Again, we have regulations under the utility, transfer of utilities. So we need to know who pays the electric and who pays and what rents are charged per the percent that we give to the landlords each year. So it's in the law that we have to collect the rent reports every year.
Okay, yeah, I guess there's no real answer to why you need mine and not the apartment across the street. I was just curious.
Because they're not under rent stabilization. We just need the ones that are under rent stabilization.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just curious about why. And the reason is because that's what it is.
For compliance.
Yeah.
In the law.
Okay.
Thank you, Lois. Karen, you had another question. Should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, it was just a quick, oh Lord, don't let it leave my mind. Oh, man. Oh, I wondered how many people are on this, are attending? I can't find it on the screen that I'm using.
We have about 33 attendees today.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Looks like Lois, you had another question. You should be able to talk now.
No, I thought I put my hand down.
Oh, sorry. No worries. Igal had a question. So Igal, you should be able to speak now. And then Elena, I see you have you'll be next.
I agree with the previous lady, Lois, I guess. I mean, it doesn't make sense that one property has to report this and another. I mean, those laws, you guys should change some of those laws, because they're not working. They're not benefiting the tenants. They're not benefiting the city, and they're not benefiting the landlords in many ways. You guys need to look at them. And I mean, there's only 33 people over here. I think landlords should come together and even approach the city with talking to them about all those issues. I try to do that. I try to to put together a group of landlords and try to see what can be done and who can we talk to in trying to change some of those laws, because they're not working. There are many properties in the city that are in very bad conditions, and they're not serving the tenants in any way. And you guys not willing to step in and do some and say, listen, those laws, we try them. It's not working. It's not helping. Some of the tenants live in very poor conditions. I'm also a licensed real estate guy, and I look on property in Takoma Park, and they are in such a bad condition, and it's a shame because even with the inspection that the county providing, it's not enough to improve their life and the condition that they live in. So, I think something has to be done to help landlords to try to bring the property to a much better condition. And the only way to do it is with helping them to raise rents. And I don't understand why nobody willing to look at the connections between those two things. Thank you.
Thanks, Sigal. Elena, you are next up. You should be able to talk now. Elena, are you able to unmute?
Hello, I posted my question in the chat if someone can please read it.
Yes, so I saw a couple of questions there. So one, it sounds like it has to do with the property taxes. So we can pass those along. The housing division doesn't deal with city or even county property taxes. Those rates are set as part of the budget process by both the city and the county, and are controlled by them. In regards to the fees, so we are going to be actually releasing a new administrative fee regulations, and those will be be available for public comment in the beginning of December. We have different, fee structures than Montgomery County, and I'm curious to see what they're kind of in. I'm curious, are you talking about in single family homes or?
Yes, I am talking about single family homes, and I have been investigating at the county level what they do, and they seem to be allowing a lot more freedom for a homeowner to put their fees clear in the contract, and then as long as it is clear, then they are able to charge, not excessively, obviously, but with some limitation, they're able to charge fees for different things. And despite the fact that I had all my, fees and everything spelled out clearly in the contract, then I'm finding out that apparently in Takoma Park, you cannot charge those fees. And so, first of all, twofold. One, if Takoma Park will be willing to align with the county, and two, if Takoma Park could at least put out a document similar to the one that I have posted in the chat, which I think is very well, outlined, that will give a guideline to, homeowners that are renting and to the tenants also.
Yeah, so we have so in terms of the one that you sent, it looks like in the publication on ordinary wear and tear, and so that one is done by the county's Office of Code Enforcement, who does our inspections as well. So we would defer to their. We sometimes share resources in that regard. We do have our fee regulations posted online, and I'm
so
happy
in that document of wear and tear, from what I remember, they state, okay, yeah, what is considered wear and tear and what is not. but also they state like a maximum that can be charged for this or for that, right? And so I guess that's what I'm referring to. I mean, if there could be a document at least guiding landlords for single homes of what could be charged or not, and if that could be more aligned to what the county allows, that will be useful for us, because as other people mentioned, you know, there are so many expenses, and you guys are trying to do programs to keep inflation down and so on. But at the end of the story, you know, if we raise the rate too high, obviously we're not competitive. And then if we don't raise it, you know, we're eating up all these costs, which is hurting us.
Ms. Grace, if you have a single family, you're exempt from rent stabilization. So you can charge.
I understand. Yeah, no, I understand that, but that's my point. You know, like if I raise my rent excessively, you know, because the county is raising taxes, and I understand that that's not controlled by Takoma Park, but at least you guys can like raise some voice to the county and say, you know, maybe you can come up with some kind of regulation that, you know, it will limit inflation for the tenants, right? That's my
Yeah,
comment.
and
Thank you.
and I think that we definitely take to heart the need to make sure that it's easy and clear what our regulations are. And so I think we're looking for ways to improve that, and we'll definitely be reaching out and trying to make sure that all of those resources are more easily available. So. All right. Karen, you should be able to.
Yeah. I'm sorry again, the man spoke again. I don't see any names, and I need to see names to remember them, but I think that he had a great idea. I know that when I just redid the recertification, whatever, the test, whatever that's called, I see it says that you all at in your office will help us tenant association get organized. Is there any kind of association between landlords, alleged landlords? Because I think to the man, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, to his question, I think that what the presenters here tonight mentioned earlier was that their job is to implement what the city council has decided. So they can't change the rules, but we as owners may be able to go to city council as a group. I'm not much on public speaking. Somehow I feel like talking to you guys, but if we went as a group, maybe, you know, they would put a name with our faces and realize that they're picking on us and they need to change some of this stuff. So my question is there any kind of way for the city to help the landlords, again, I use that word, organize ourselves so that we could be a stronger voice? We all seem to have the same problems.
Yeah, so I think one thing that on our end we could do, because, you know, one of the our division's mission is to facilitate, you know, good relations between property owners and tenants, right? So part of that is, you know, sharing best practices and doing that. And one takeaway I think that might be useful is we can put together kind of a sign up form in which you can put your contact information, and we can send that around to anyone who would like to participate. So, you know, that way, if
helpful.
Yeah, and that way, if, you know, people don't want their contact information out there, they don't have to, but that way, you know, fellow landlords can speak, you know. And then additionally, we do plan on hosting more landlord roundtables. We anticipate hosting more tenant forums. The idea is that we want to generate a productive discussion for all housing stakeholders. So
right, and again, it's got to go farther than this. So that's why we need to maybe, you know, think about getting organized. But I do appreciate the roundtable. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. All right. I have another, I'm gonna do Christine and then Terry. So Christine, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't know, it feels like it's been almost 2 years now, but there was a point where some people in Ward 5 started to get together to have that type of conversation. And I thought it went really well. Like we all had similar issues, but like a little bit different, each of us, depending on how many places we had. The issue was we didn't have anyone to talk to about it, but we were told someone was going to be starting in the government that was going to, Takoma, at Takoma Park, that was going to be able to talk to us about it. And so we were waiting and waiting, and that meeting never came. And so it's like been 2 years practically since since we started having, you know what I mean? Like we have to have some place to go. And so I think, and I was told that the other committee for rental stuff was focused more on, renter rights and not so much about landlords. And so there has to be, you should really think of landlords. Somebody had mentioned that, we're kind of the bad guys, and it's like we shouldn't be looked at like that. It should be a partnership, and you should look at us like, how can you help us so that we can continue to have a working, situation with our renters. Because if it's not working for us, like I said, you're going to end up with just people that are really wealthy come in, they can afford these houses because we won't be able to do it anymore. So I really hope you guys move forward, figure out a way to have all of us connect and start to have regular meetings where we can have a really comprehensive conversation that's not just kind of us being frustrated over the phone, but like really outlining what would help landlords. I'll stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll say is I definitely understand, the frustration. I think that one of my goals for our division is that we are seen as a reasonable, objective party in these discussions, that we are not, on the scale for any one group, and that we're, we have a kind of what I would say, statutory requirements that we're required to enforce as city staff, but that we are, there to be a resource as well. So I'll open it up. Terry, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Devin. I would just like to say that there are kind of three entities here. We've got Devin with the certain responsibility that's dictated by the city council. And then, of course, we have the city council, which makes the policies. And we have the landlords who would like to advocate for changes in the policy. And I don't think it's fair to Devin to put him in the middle of the advocating for those changes. I think he's an important resource in understanding what the policies are. But I would offer my help if people wanted to, if landlords wanted to organize and think about a way to approach the city council for policy changes. And part of that would certainly be working with Devin, but I wouldn't want to put him in the position of advocating for policy changes that are taking too big of a role in that activity.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, and what I would say there is, I think our division sits in kind of we are implementing kind of the rules as they are written. We're there as a resource and a guide, and we would like to facilitate good conversations. But yes, we as a policy group, we are not necessarily advocates. So agree with everything you're saying there. I see a question on the from Elena about when are the administrative regulations for fees going to be released. So they will be posted at the end of this month. They'll be available online for public comment. You can go to tacomaparkmd.gov and they will be available. And then we will also send out an email to everyone who is a landlord, and the primary contact of those emails, similar to when we do others, and then we will be posting materials online. So we are also looking, as part of the website redesign that is undergoing at a citywide level, taking a long, hard look at our own website. I realize that it is a little bit challenging to navigate, and so we are going to be looking at ways to address those, and make it a little bit more clear for both for all different interested groups in housing, how to access different resources, information, all of that. There's a question here from Agal about why not use the Montgomery County's rental rules. So some of our rules are written into city code. So as we've kind of covered, that is the department's kind of job, is to implement kind of the rules as they are written. So I'm not seeing any other hands. I'll give everyone a minute if there are any other questions or comments. All right, Lois, you should be able to talk. Oh, Lois, are you able to unmute?
All day. Okay, my question is about during the renewal process, I saw that the inspection has to be conducted before the license is approved. That depends on the county schedule, right? So I assume there's some built-in time. It might be a couple of months before you can get on the county schedule.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we're doing for the moment, given that we are transitioning to a new platform, and that we realize the county does not have the capacity to do 300 plus inspections in 30 days. If you have had a inspection passed in the past, 12 months, we are accepting that as, you are in compliance. As we move into the new system, we are going to try to bring forward some code changes on an administrative level to move from this annual process where in December everyone has to scramble in the midst of the holidays to renew their license, and move to a rolling license. So from the date you get your license, you will have the full 12, or in some cases 24 months before you have to renew again. With the goal being that A, it will make it easier for code enforcement to spread that workload out. B, it will be less pain for us as staff to deal with a more moderate level of renewals. And C, it'll be easier for and more fair to landlords as well, so that they get the full 12 months instead of having to wait around for 6 months potentially for a license. As part of that, what we will have is we are going to have kind of similar to how the, and I probably shouldn't use this as an example, but it's on my mind because my registration needs to be renewed. DMV sends out a reminder notice 60 days in advance. The idea would be 60 and 30 days in advance, you would get a reminder so that you could start that process ahead of schedule, get on the code enforcement's list to get to start your inspection so that your license does not lapse.
And in the past, I got a notice from the county that they were going to inspect, and it hasn't been every year. It's been like every 2 or 3 years.
We have, it depends on kind of, I will say it depends on how long your license is. There are 2 types of licenses. There's the annual license, which most multifamily units fall under, but there are some 2-year licenses as well, and that has to do with the results of the inspection. So,
Okay, thanks.
Christine, you should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, first, I want to say the updated reporting system looks great, and I'm really excited about that. Second is, I got on a little bit late, so maybe you guys talked about it, but it wasn't really clear to me. Is something different happening with the inspections? Because like somebody said, you get them depending on how well you did the previous time. It's like 1 or 2 years. And so it's unclear to me, or like we're filling out this thing and then we immediately have to have inspections in December?
So the answer is no. There's no change to kind of how inspections work. And for this renewal period, if you have had and passed an inspection in the past 12 months, you are good to go. We are trying to better align kind of when you get your license and when the inspection happens. Things got a little out of sync with COVID, but even before then, you might get inspected, 3 months after December because of that. So what we're trying to do is better align the licensing going forward with the inspections so that there's continuity in your rental license.
Mhm.
Karen, you should be able to unmute.
Yes. Okay, I also was late getting here. So I had been put on a every other year schedule of inspection because I had some good inspections. So that means I haven't been inspected in the last 12 months. So you probably covered this at the beginning. What do I do now? In the past, they've sent me a letter and said it's time to schedule an inspection. Should I wait for that, or is there a place I can go and find out who to?
So they will send you a letter. Karen, is your license expiring this December?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, it already, I think it expired maybe. I don't know. I was notified, I think I was notified that it expired. So I just did the recertification test.
Yeah.
Is that what you call it? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say, Karen, if you're already talking with Jessica, speak with her, and
Okay.
she will be able to guide you through the process.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
And I will note that by the time that these renewals do start, any properties that are due for an inspection will have been sent to the county. So it will just be a matter of their capacity and getting things scheduled.
And I will note that if we are just waiting on the county, that is as per usual department policy, you will not be penalized if that's the one thing remaining. So, all right. Any other questions? Any other hands? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone tonight for stopping by. I want to thank everyone for their comments. I realize that this is the first of hopefully many conversations. So we'll be taking all this in and trying to kind of work towards kind of building kind of conversations about this. This will be, the recording will work with City TV to get it posted, and then I will work on getting the PowerPoint out later this week. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and thank you all so much for showing up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.